Assalamualaikum and good morning to all. So for today, we're going to continue with our lecture on chapter number 3. Okay, so far we have covered chapter 1 on the introduction, background of the study. Okay, chapter number 2, we have also discussed in detail the literature review. Okay, and then now we are going to proceed with chapter number 3. Okay, on the research method. Okay, research methodology or research method. The thesis that we have been referring so far for chapter 1 and chapter 2 is based on this thesis number 2, okay, on the impact of foreign direct impact of foreign capital flows, or basically the thesis number 2 in our Google Drive. Okay, because I believe that the layout or the outline, okay, for the first 2 chapters, okay, fits well and is clearly organized, and every student, okay, or every groups, okay, whether for group assignment or individual assignment, okay, should try to follow as close as possible to the layout. Okay, of course, this is the subtopics is different, okay, but at least the division of the subchapters, especially for chapter number 2, on the theoretical discussion, and then followed by the discussion of past studies on the variables, okay, factors which are relevant to the issue. Okay, you can follow the thesis number 2. Okay, of course, okay, this is not a strict format. Okay, you can, if you find that other thesis, especially the one that are using primary data analysis, okay, has a much more organized layout for chapter number 2, you can follow that as well. Okay, but the main thing is that for chapter 2, you need to have a clear distinction between the theoretical section and then followed by the second part on the empirical review, okay, of past studies. Okay, so that will be the research gap is not needed lah. Okay, it's not needed. Okay, I forgot to mention. Okay, it's not needed in chapter 2. Okay, for me, at least for the undergraduate level, it's sufficient that you only highlight the theoretical discussion and then the review of past studies. Okay, no need to have research gap. Okay, maybe for PhD, yes, you need to focus more on what is the gap in the literature. Okay, where does your study actually contribute? Okay, but for undergraduate level or even at master's level, it's sufficient that you only have the first 2 parts. Okay, the theoretical background and also the empirical studies. So for today, we're going to continue on chapter number 3 on the on the research method. Okay, for chapter number 3, I'm going to use thesis number 28, okay, from the Google Drive, which title Intention to Purchase Halal Products. Okay, of course, there are many other theses that I can refer to, but as we all know by now, okay, our discussion or the focus of our research project of our syllabus is based on primary data analysis, data collected from questionnaire. So the thesis collection from the Google Drive, mostly, I think we have around half or maybe perhaps more than half of the thesis are based on primary or secondary data. Okay, and the remaining will be based on primary data using questionnaire. So I think it's better that we try to follow example of thesis that apply or uses primary data analysis from questionnaire, okay, as the guideline how you should design your chapter number 3. Okay, among the thesis that I have looked at, I think the thesis number 28 is a good example. Okay, it's a good example how you should lay out your chapter number 3. Okay, for chapter number 3, I would prefer that you put the title of chapter 3 as research method, not research methodology. Okay, so there are different opinion, or I think you might find some thesis use research methodology, some use research method. Okay, for thesis number 2, for example, the student use research methodology. Okay, but for me, I would prefer to use the word research method, meaning don't put the word methodology, but replace it or use the word research method instead. Why? Because methodology is basically is from chapter 1 to chapter 5. That is the methodology, meaning that the thesis actually comprised of 5 chapters, from introduction, literature review, method, findings, and then 5, the conclusion. So that is what methodology is, the whole outline of the project. So research method is basically how you are going to analyze, okay, or analyze the data, whether using primary data or using secondary data, whether you're going to use simple regression or advanced regression or simple hypothesis testing. So there are many ways that you can actually analyze your, or perform the analysis in your research. Okay, as long as the method that you choose is able to answer the research objectives that you outline in chapter 1. So that's why it is very important that whatever item or how you lay out your chapter 3 must be reflected, okay, or you must compare what you have actually outlined in chapter 1, okay, in the research questions, and followed by the research objective, because whatever that you plan to use for chapter number 3 is basically going to be used to answer your research questions. Okay, so that is something that you need to understand before we can even begin discussing how you what is research method. Okay, how you should actually outline your thesis. Okay, and especially it's not just how you outline in writing, but actually what is research method all about. So that will be the focus of our recording, our lecture for today. Okay, so I'm going to discuss in general first, and our class on Thursday, okay, we will discuss further, especially on the questionnaire design, okay, on primary data collection, how you should actually design your questionnaire so that it will, you need to understand what is the population, okay, and the rest. So today will just be an introduction. Okay, what is research design? Okay, what is population and sampling design? Okay, and then we're going to go through the questionnaire design, maybe in general first. Okay, and then as what I have given last week, okay, the SPSS software, which is one of, I think, the most popular software in social science, okay, whereby you can use the software to actually key in your data collected from questionnaire and perform many analysis from simple to advanced analysis. Okay, of course, at undergraduate level, okay, I just require simple analysis, especially the one that you have already learned from basic statistics paper in your first year. Okay, so first, okay, what is research method? So research method basically, if you is basically how you want to approach or conduct your study. Okay, so if you okay, so this is the outline. Okay, from so if you look at different theses, they have different maybe different style of outlining the research method, but the basic or the main ingredient or the main contents that you should have in a thesis, especially if you are using primary data, will be on you need to have what is the population and how do you actually construct, or what is the sampling design. Okay, are you using simple random survey, okay, or simple random sampling? Okay, as what you learned before in basic statistics, there are several types of sampling. Okay, so this is what you need to understand, the structure of your population and how you actually wish to obtain the sample from the population. And the most important, I think, will be the questionnaire design, because what you put in the questionnaire, okay, should be able to contain information that will allow you to answer your research questions. Okay, a good questionnaire should be simple and easy to understand, and the questions that you put, okay, shouldn't is just enough, okay, not contain too much or too many questions, okay, and then the question should be, a good questionnaire should allow the participants or the respondents to answer clearly, and at the end of the day, okay, the analysis that you will do, okay, will allow you to extract the information to answer your research questions and also your research objectives. Okay, so I've also, if you can see from my screen here, okay, several theses, okay, on thesis number 35 and 57. Basically, both are actually the same title, but of course by different authors. Okay, this is on the factor that affecting the career choice among students. So I think I will use thesis number 35, okay, as part of our basic introduction for chapter 3, okay. So what you should actually write down, okay, how you actually start to design your chapter number 3, okay. So for your individual assignment, okay, you only need to write from chapter 1 until chapter 3, which does not actually require you to do any analysis. But although you don't need to do any analysis, but the way you actually outline, okay, and specify how you actually obtain or are going to obtain the information or the samples from your population must be outlined clearly. Okay, so for example, if your information is taken from SAFB students, okay, so you need to define how you are actually going to identify who are the SAFB students. Okay, how are you going to detect students that actually belong from the SAFB school? So this must be mentioned clearly in your chapter 3 as well. Okay, so for thesis number 57 and 35, both share the same similar title or similar scope. Okay, but I would prefer to discuss more on 35 because this is on the UEM. It was done. The student used UEM as as part of the analysis. Okay, and then we also have thesis number 20, which is another good thesis that you can refer to when it comes to how to actually write your chapter number 3. Okay, so let me use chapter number thesis number 20 first. So 20 is about entrepreneurial intention, okay, and its influencing factors. Also study done among UUM students. Okay, so for chapter 3, basically the first paragraph, okay, 3.1 is just, okay, basic guideline or basic description, okay, what you plan to actually write. Of course, okay, the content here, okay, must be related to the scope of your study, okay, because for thesis number 20 is about the intention to undertake entrepreneurial activity. So the factors such as risk-taking, need for achievement is mentioned, okay, in the first paragraph. So whatever topic that you decide to do for your group assignment and also individual assignment, okay, must be highlighted briefly in the first part. Okay, so the second part or 3.2 will be the research design. Okay, so pay attention that, okay, I mentioned that we're going to use this thesis. Okay, so research design, okay, population and sampling design. So these are the core components, okay, that you should have in your chapter 3. Okay, so what is research design? So you will notice that 3.2 or 3.1 in here, okay, research design is basically how you are going to undertake or conduct the process of from your data collection until the analysis. So that is the word design is, okay, how you actually construct the idea of your analysis. Okay, so first you need to know what is the type of study, whether you are doing qualitative analysis or quantitative analysis. Okay, so because we are relying on data collection, okay, primary or even secondary, so that falls under quantitative analysis or quantitative study. Okay, but some other areas which does not really use any statistical tool. For example, they just do observation or case study, or area that does not, I mean, there are many types of study that you can use, that you can do, that does not require any analysis of data. Okay, for example, on psychology, for example, or I mean, so you cannot assume that every analysis must require you to exercise or use mathematical analysis. Okay, so since we are relying on questionnaire, okay, as part of our data collection, and we are going to analyze the information from the questionnaire using statistical tools, okay, ANOVA, hypothesis testing, okay, correlation. So those fall under quantitative study. So the type of study that we are going to apply for all groups, okay, whether individual or group assigned for group projects, will be based on quantitative. Okay, and the rest will be what you are actually looking at. Okay, relationship between, for example, the cost of living. Okay, depending on what topic of your choice. Okay, so and the rest is just a simple or standard description of what quantitative research method is. Okay, so you can refer to many other theses, okay, including this one, how to actually construct your 3.2.1 or the type of study. Okay, so of course you need to mention in this part what is actually you are looking at, why it falls under quantitative study. Okay, and of course, when you conduct a study that relies on primary data, okay, primary data means you are using questionnaire, okay, as your primary source of data, okay, whereby you are going to use, okay, statistical tool, okay, as I mentioned, ANOVA, hypothesis testing, correlation, and whatnot. Okay, but beside that, okay, you cannot only rely on quantitative as part of your analysis, but also certain part or the some portion of your analysis must also consist of a descriptive study. Descriptive study means, okay, you can use simple graphical tools, for example, pie chart, histogram, whereby you only use the data that you collect and you try to describe, okay, describe the structure of your data. So if you recall from your, if you still got the notes or the materials from your basic statistics subject, BEEQ, okay, 1013 if I'm not mistaken, okay, basic statistics that you took in your first year. Okay, what is descriptive study? Okay, the word descriptive is you describe, okay, basically you don't do any analysis, okay, but you just simply describing the data that you collect, okay, about your sample, which, okay, for example, if you collect information about from UUM student, okay, specifically if the sample comes from SAFB students, okay, so let's say you got around 300 samples, okay, or 300 students, okay, from your data collection. So from these 300, you are going to describe how many of your data are female students, how many of them are male students, okay, and you can break down according to, for example, location of your samples. I mean, if that is what you want to know, for example, your sample come from, or the students lives in Kedah, how many lives in KL, okay, the demographic, okay, the age of the students, for example, or the background of the students, where the student, I mean, the previous study, I mean, the previous academic qualification, whether the student come from STPM background, or matriculation background, or diploma background. So that is what descriptive study is. So basically, you are just describing the data, okay, without the use of any mathematical or statistical analysis to actually test whether you are testing the relationship between X and Y. Okay, so basically the type of study, whenever you rely on primary data, or even secondary data. It's very common that we are going to combine quantitative and also descriptive. Okay, most of the analysis will be done under quantitative. Okay, but you cannot escape or you cannot avoid having a descriptive study. Usually, the first part of your analysis must begin with descriptive study. And we will once we discuss about the questionnaire section, okay, you will notice that I'm sure all of you have a sample of questionnaire, okay, that you are going to rely on or use as your base, okay, for you to use in your own project. Okay, the first part of any questionnaire usually will be the demographic section, okay, whereby you are going to ask questions with regard to, okay, if you look at thesis number 28, okay, so some of the theses do include questionnaires, okay, at the end of the thesis, okay, which I think for thesis 28, we don't have that particular set of questionnaire, but I think thesis number 35, yeah, we do have the questions, okay, as part of the appendix. Okay, so this is again, okay, your own creativity, trying to find source example of questionnaires. Okay, so part A, demographic information. So this is a very common or a must, okay, a compulsory section in I think in almost all questionnaire for you to understand what is the structure of your sample data when you collect your sample. Okay, so you want to know the background or the demographic characteristics of your data. So that is what when you put the data into whether into Excel or even SPSS. Okay, so it makes sense for you to analyze under one software. So once you key in your data into SPSS, so you can analyze this information, okay, the break that they're using simple pie chart or bar graph. Usually we only rely on simple graphical tools, okay, to facilitate the interpretation of the under this descriptive study. Okay, and then you are going to explain a bit here the type of descriptive study to be used is cross-sectional because it involves collecting data just once. So basically, this is just the definition of what is descriptive study. Okay, but Sekaran and Bogi, I mean, these are the main or the one of the popular references, okay, that student, okay, or researchers use when it comes to primary data analysis. Okay, so that is the type of study. We're going to combine both quantitative and also descriptive analysis. Okay, and then sources of data. Okay, so this is, you need to pay very important attention. Even though I mentioned that, okay, for the project, for this semester, okay, you are not required actually to do the actual data collection involving the actual sample. So for example, if you are planning to ask about B40, about the cost of living among the B40 people in Kedah, for example, you are not required actually to go and find the actual respondents or samples that belong to the B40 groups. Okay, but you need to actually specify how the information that, I mean, you need to mention in your thesis, okay, how you are going to identify the population that belongs under the B40 groups. Okay, so you need to actually clearly mention where are you going to get the list from. Okay, because you cannot simply send out the questionnaire to random people. Okay, if you are targeting the B40 people, okay, the B40 respondents, okay, so whether you are doing a face-to-face interview or you are sending your questionnaire via online, okay, Google form, okay, or through WhatsApp, you are sending the link through WhatsApp groups or whatever medium, okay, whether you print out the questionnaire and you go and meet the respondent face to face, or you are just relying on online approach. Okay, so either ways, you must be able to determine how you are going to identify these B40 individuals. Okay, so you need to mention clearly. So of course, okay, the thesis that you are referring to, the journals that you are referring to, okay, should specify this as well. So it shouldn't be a big issue, okay, unless if you are modifying, okay, if you're changing the scope, meaning from, let's say, if the thesis, for example, thesis number 57, okay, is about the factors affecting career choice, but it was done among students in Indonesia, okay, and thesis number 35, it was done among students, let me see, I think the focus of the respondents, okay, surely I think the thesis was done among students, but the, okay, um, yeah, sorry, this is among the University of Aden, yeah, University of Aden. It's not among students, sorry. Okay, so thesis 35, meaning that the students are, the samples come from University of Aden for thesis number 57. So this is among the students in Indonesia. Okay, so if you are taking respondents from UUM, okay, I think thesis number 35, number 28. Okay, so the students or the samples do come from student, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, let me check. Data collection. Okay, so this is not. Yeah, so I got confused. Also, this is number 20 on this entrepreneurial intention. So this data collection, okay, the population has been obtained from SBM. Okay, so but you need to be more, actually, I need it to be more specific, okay, how you actually, because of course I do not require you to produce all the names of the students, okay, because you need to determine, the number of population, yes, you can get just the number, how many you can ask you can go and ask the department, okay, but you need to actually specify, okay, later in the analysis, okay, how many, later in chapter number 3, okay, when you want to determine what is the sample size, okay, the population frame. So population frame that from here, okay, you need to know how many samples you are going, so this part here, okay, table 3.1, okay, so you need to know exactly how many students come from, so in this particular student, thesis, okay, the focus is among the SBM department. So the student has obtained these actual numbers. So you need to actually contact whether the office of SAB, if your sample comes from SAB students, okay, how many come from economic, okay, how many come from finance, how many come from banking, okay, how many come from agricultural, agri-business. So you need to get the actual numbers for you to actually determine what is the actual population. So this is where I mentioned that even though your data, okay, or even though your samples, you can ask your friends who does not even belong to the SAAB, for example, to answer. But the actual numbers of the population of the SAAB students, you must determine it properly, meaning you cannot simply create these numbers. Okay, so this must be done properly, meaning you need to contact, or you need to get the information from the school or from the academic department. Usually, you just contact the office of the SAB. Okay, if you need to write a formal letter to the office and just mention you are doing as part of your research process. Okay, and okay, I can even sign the letter on your sign the letter. Okay, and then you can forward, okay, or you can communicate with the person in charge from the SAB school. okay, so that you can, I think this information is not confidential. It's just the number of students, okay, that you need to know. It's not like they are going to give you the email address, okay, the phone number. So that might be a confidential information, okay. But to determine what is the population size, so you need to determine that properly. So depending on what topic that you want to do. So let's say if you're doing a analysis on the cost of living among the B40 citizens or people in Kedah. So you need to determine how you are actually going to get that information. Okay, whether from the Department of Statistics Malaysia, okay, or from the economic unit from Kedah. So you need to just check. So usually, whatever thesis or journals that you are referring to that has similar type of study, so this will be mentioned as well in the thesis or in the journal. So you just follow or just use whatever information, okay, unless if you find yourself in this position, meaning the thesis that you are following is done on other schools, okay, but the focus of your school project is on SAFB, so you need to modify that or update that reflects the actual population that you are going to do for our project. Okay, so this is one thing that you need to understand. Of course, the numbers, for example, this thesis was written maybe several years ago, and these numbers are only correct, okay, when the information was retrieved, okay. And of course, the number of students changes every semester or every year, okay. So this is one part that you need to understand, okay, whenever you conduct your thesis, okay, conduct your project. Okay, so just now we have discussed about the type of study, quantitative, a combination of quantitative and also descriptive, okay. Secondly is the source of data, okay, which I mentioned just now. So it depends on where you are going to, so if you recall what you have learned in your basic statistics, population versus sample, okay, population versus sample. So please go back to the please go back to the notes that you have learned before, several, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, okay. But maybe some of you are in semester 3, maybe you only learned that last semester or 2 semesters ago, okay. So I'm not going to spend too much time teaching you what is population, what is sample, because you already learned that in the previous subject. Okay, so but what I want to highlight is that population is the total. If you are focusing on SAFB students, so SAFB will be the population. Will be the population. If you're focusing on UUM as the focus of your, let's say the title of your project will be the intention to use Grab car, for example, okay, or Grab services. I mean this Food Panda or Grab Food, okay, among students of UUM. So the whole of UUM will be your population, okay. Then you need to determine how you are going to obtain the actual number of population from the UUM, okay. So you can contact the HEA, the Department of Academic, or you can even contact our school, okay, because you just need that particular number, the actual number, as per maybe last semester, the most recent semester. So population is basically the focus of your analysis, which usually will be reflected in the title of your project as well. So that will give you an immediate indicator what is the population of your research, okay, of your study. Okay, for example, for this thesis number 35, okay, it's mentioned clearly here, University of Aden. So all the students of undergraduate, okay, and undergraduate means excluding postgraduate, PhD and masters are not included. So undergraduate, those are doing bachelor degree. So the study is using the entire, students of this Aden University as part of the population. Okay, so this must be defined clearly in your project. Okay, what is the population? So if you are focusing among SAFB students, so just mention here, okay, the population will be from SAFB BUM. Okay, so the rest will be quite standard. The data will be collected through questionnaires. Okay, of course, I think you need to mention. Okay, you need to see whether you need to mention whether the questionnaires are collected via online. I think that one must be mentioned on the how you are going to conduct the sampling. Okay, the sampling technique. Okay, how you are going to actually obtain the information. Okay, so but as far as source of data is concerned, you just need to mention what is the population of your study. Okay, so if you're focusing on SAB, you need to bear in mind that under SAB we have different department. Okay, meaning that we have the economics, agribusiness, finance, and banking. So your sample information must contain students that come from these four schools as well, okay, of these four programs as well, okay, as part of your analysis. But the source of data, I think, is very simple and straightforward. Okay, and then next we can look at what is the unit of analysis. Okay, just now I mentioned that we are going to use thesis number, was it 28? Okay, so yeah, research design, I think I mentioned that we can use thesis number 57 or 35. Okay, so okay, wait. Okay, so basically it's about the if you compare, like, 8, 9, 10 thesis using primary data, you will find that most of the time the structure will be more or less similar. Okay, so research design consists of the type of study just now we discussed, quantitative and also qualitative. Source of data, it comes from where you get the information from. Okay, what is the basically the population of your study. Okay, and then we look at the unit of analysis. Okay, the unit means the person that you are going to study is individual, because sometimes it might involve not a particular person. It might involve, for example, I mean the just a certain group of department. It depends on the research, but I think most of the time the unit of the analysis will be at individual basis, meaning you are going to interview one person, one student at a time. Okay, because you must remember, sometimes we are focusing at household. Household mean one family at a time. So the unit will be a household. Household meaning that the father, the mother, the children, that will be the unit of analysis, meaning you are looking at one family at a time. One family becomes one sample, or one respondent. Okay, but because you are looking at, or you are getting data from each individual student, so the unit of analysis will be at individual level, meaning you are analyzing information obtained from each student. Okay, if you're focusing on student, if you're focusing on, for example, the B40 people, so of course still at individual, because you are asking those who belong under or getting income that fall under the category of B40. Okay, so again, the respondents are undergraduate of so for this particular thesis, okay, under the student will be undergraduate of UUM who are taking course under SCFB. Okay, if you are looking at if you are focusing on SCFB students. Okay, so their response will be treated as individual data source. Okay, means that one student is one respondent lah. Okay, but if you're looking at household, okay, one family, so one family will be treated as one individual data lah. Okay, I think for unit of analysis, okay, is a straightforward definition. What is unit of analysis? Okay, so I think for most groups, I think the focus will be around students or individuals that belong to, for example, B40. Okay, but okay, all groups, or whether you are doing individual or group assignment, the unit of analysis will be at individual level. Okay, so and then the next one will be the population of so let me see. Okay, population frame. It shouldn't be population of frame. I think this is a typo error here. Okay, it's just supposed to be population frame. Okay, so if you look at other theses as well, it should be population frame. Okay, not population of frame. So this is a typo here that you need to that don't follow this lah, just population frame. Okay, so if you compare the other theses that I mentioned or chosen to discuss for our lecture today, okay, it should be similar. Okay, what is the population of your, so basically some of the elements that we have discussed previously contain the same information. Okay, but because we need to define what is our population frame. Okay, population frame means, okay, if you look at one, if you are focusing at UUM students in general, so the whole frame of our population is belong to the UUM students. So here again, the population frame comes is under the School of this is SBM, and consists of, so basically this is the part where you describe the population frame more in detail, because previously you only mentioned SBM, I mean for this particular thesis. Okay, now under the population frame, okay, the thesis actually discuss or describe in further detail, okay, what are the components or what are the courses that students under SBM belongs to. Okay, so there are several courses here, the same for SCFB. Okay, we have economics, agribusiness, finance, and banking. Okay, of course, you need to get the actual or proper name for the bachelor program, okay, from the school. Okay, so that is the population frame. So if you're looking at other topics, okay, so you need to determine, okay, for example, if you're focusing on population of Kedah, okay, so if you just, you know, if the samples come from the whole of Kedah, meaning that you don't actually have any breakdown, it's just anyone that for example B40 in Kedah, so anyone that belongs to the group under the group B40 in Kedah, okay, should be part of your population frame lah. Again, okay, this is where you need to read, okay, get as many theses or journals, okay, whether similar to your topic or not, okay, focus on this population frame definition and see how you can modify or use that example to fit your project. Okay, so that is population frame. Okay, and next is sample and sampling technique. Okay, so for this part, I think we will discuss more in detail during our live lecture on next Thursday. Okay, but if you go to your OL, okay, I've already uploaded this sample size table, okay, from Crecci and Morgan that many theses, okay, or many researchers are using. Okay, from 1970. I mean, of course, there are different statistic tables that you can apply, but Crecci and Morgan 1970 is one of the most popular or common source of reference. Okay, whenever you want to determine if your population, let's say, consists of 1,000 students, what should be the minimum number of samples that you need? So you need to use this table in fact, the thesis that we are referring to, okay, also apply the Krejci and Morgan 1970 as the guideline, because the number of samples, how many students that you need to send out the questionnaire. You cannot simply, send out to, any numbers without having any proper reference. Okay, for example, if you're, let's say, among SAB students, if we have around, let's say, 2,000 SAB students, what is the minimum, okay, minimum number of students that you need to send out the questionnaire and answer your questions, okay? Because you can send out more, but the most minimum that should reply or return the questionnaires, okay, will be that based on certain statistical table. And Krejci and Morgan 1970 will be, is one of the most popular one. And I already included the table in your OL. Okay, you can refer to that. And in fact, many theses from the Google Drive, I think they refer to the Krejci and Morgan table as well. So sample, basically how you determine the minimum number of respondents. Okay, I'm saying minimum because you can go for more than the minimum, because the more the better. Okay, but it shouldn't fall below the minimum required numbers, because if it fall below, then your sample is not representative, okay, of the population. Because as what you learned in basic statistics before, okay, a good sample is supposed to represent the population. Okay, if your sample is too small, then the information that you obtain from the analysis cannot be, is not, representative of the population characteristics. Okay, if you make a conclusion from the sample, then you cannot, the analysis is not valid if the sample size is too small. Okay, it does not, you don't get the minimum you don't achieve the minimum sample size required, then the analysis become questionable. Okay, your result become less valid lah. Okay, because a good sample must be, the more sample that you collect, the better it is. If you recall the term sampling or sample limit theorem, okay, you learn this, maybe you have forgotten the term. Okay, sample limit theorem, okay, basically suggests about increasing the number of sample size so that it will reflect or it will reach the true characteristics of the population. So for the number of samples, okay, you can use this guideline, the Krejci and Morgan table. So depending on what is the actual number of population that is relevant to your own study. If you are looking at SAB students, so you need to get what is the actual number of SAB students. Okay, here 2529 are students that belong to SBM. Okay, when the student actually did this particular study. So this number must be the actual number. Okay, and then you use the table by Krejci and Morgan. It's just a simple table. You look at where the number actually fall closest to the table, and you determine what is the minimum sample size that must be obtained. For example, for 2529, the respondent must be 335. Okay, if we look at this table again, okay, under the Krejci and Morgan. Okay, so 2529, correct? So 2529 or 2530. So it should fall under, it is more than 2400, but less than 26. So we use 2600 as our benchmark. So the minimum sample size should be 335. That's why the student outline here the sample size or the number of respondents lah. Okay, the number of sample required. Okay, for a population of 2529 should be 335. So 335, okay, comes from this number here, 335. Okay, for a population of 2600. Okay, because of course you cannot get the exact number, but you must find the nearest, okay, to that. So it's 335. So for this particular project or this particular thesis, Okay, thesis number 20. So the respondents that should answer the questionnaire must be at least 335. Okay, it can be more than that, no problem, because usually you want to send out more, because if you send out just enough 335, maybe some student does not respond or reply to the questionnaire. So of course, for this particular project that you do, okay, there's no issue about the students does not respond, because you are just sending out the questions among your friends, okay, to answer. Okay, so but in the actual world of doing research, okay, if you were to do this research in the real world, or maybe in the next year when you actually reach semester 7, okay, when you do your own project, okay, of course, your project, okay, for an individual thesis, the scope of the study, even though the minimum should be 335, but this is subject to the discussion with you and your supervisor. For example, for me, I only require the student to get around at least 40 number of respondents, okay? That is done through face-to-face interview, okay? Because the interview must be done, the actual interview must be done face-to-face, okay? So that's why I don't really require that many respondents because of the time constraint. But when you write your project, okay, you must follow how the thesis or how the project is actually done in the real world. So the number should be referred based on the Krejci and Morgan table. So the number of the students that that is relevant to your project, whether UM students or any other population, depending on your topic, you must obtain these numbers from the original source, okay, whether from the Department of Statistics, or whatever, inilah. So you need to mention that clearly in your project. So I will see how you actually get this information from. So whether I will ask you during your presentation or just verify from during our lecture how you actually obtain this information. What is the sample size? What is the population number? Okay, and how you actually obtain this actual population number. Okay, so this is something that you need to really follow, okay, and also understand when it comes to determining the sample size. So we are going to use the Krejci and Morgan table. Okay, sampling technique. Okay, so this is another approach. Okay, so if we want to discuss in detail how many sampling techniques are out there. Okay, so there are many sampling techniques: simple random sampling, or convenient sampling. Okay, or sometimes people call it availability sampling. So in the next lecture on this coming Thursday, okay, so I will discuss a bit more on the different types of sampling technique. Okay, but of course the most popular one will be the simple random sampling or convenient sampling, meaning that convenient sampling is you only send out the questionnaire to those that is available. Okay, meaning that if you have, let's say you got a list of students from your WhatsApp group that you know that they belong to the SAB group or SAB students, so you can put up the link, the Google form link, and you just make a shout out. Okay, please answer these questions, blah blah blah. So that is what we call convenience or availability sampling. Okay, so it depends on the kind of research that you are doing. Okay, maybe at undergraduate or master's level, as what this thesis is about, so it is still acceptable. But maybe at PhD level, okay, it depends on the discussion between the student and also the supervisor, because sometimes convenience sampling is not the way to actually the best way to collect, because you might want to use a more rigorous method that will improve the quality of the sample that you obtain. Okay, so of course the easiest one will be convenient sampling. What is convenient to you? Okay, but as long as those who answer must be part of the 2,529 student, so that is okay. But how you actually obtain the information from these 2,529 students, that is just based on what is the most convenient to you. Meaning you can just send out the link, okay, or ask your friend to distribute the link or the Google form to other WhatsApp groups, okay, among your colleagues, among your friends. Okay, so that will be what we call as convenience sampling. But of course, there are many other techniques as well, which I may discuss this coming Thursday. Okay, of course, that technique may not be relevant to your project this particular semester, but at least as part of the learning process, okay, you need to know what are the different type of sampling techniques out there. Okay, so you can we're gonna use this Kotari book and other textbook as well. Okay, to discuss briefly on what are the different types of sampling that we can use. Okay, so we are going to, I will discuss this further on next class. So at least for today, okay, please go through this video and the thesis or the journal that you are referring to as your reference point or your reference for your project, and see how you want to go about obtaining the actual population number, okay, from the relevant authority, whether from the SAB or from any other sources, depending on the scope of your project. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you. See you on Thursday. Okay. Assalamualaikum and good day to all.